Han Solo is a name that carries weight in the galaxy, but does he deserve it? People talk about him like he was the heart of Star Wars, the smooth-talking rogue with a blaster in one hand and the fate of the galaxy in the other. But when you strip away the nostalgia, when you really break down who he was and what he did, a different picture starts to form. A picture of a man who is not nearly as legendary as people claim. Some characters define this story, while others simply pass through it. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Leia Organa, these are names that shaped the fate of the galaxy. They were irreplaceable, their actions sending ripples across history that could not be undone. But Han Solo, he was there, he had his moments, but was he ever truly necessary? If you remove him from the story, does the outcome change in any meaningful way? People love Han because he was cool. He had the Falcon, the confidence, the attitude. But how much of that was real, and how much of it was luck disguised as skill? He was not the best pilot in the galaxy, he was not the smartest, and he was never the hero people make him out to be. He was just in the right place at the right time, and sometimes, that is enough to make people believe in a legend that never really existed. Legends are powerful, but they can also be misleading. People like to believe in the idea of Han Solo more than the reality of who he was. They want the charming outlaw, the reluctant hero, the man who somehow always found a way out. But the truth is, he was not as important as people think, and when you take a closer look, the cracks in the myth start to show. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why Han Solo was overrated. We will look at the moments that defined him, the choices that exposed him, and the reasons why his legacy is built on more illusion than substance. If you think Han Solo was a true hero, prepare to see him in a whole new light. Han Solo was always painted as the ultimate rogue, the smuggler with a heart of gold, the guy who always had the right words at the right time. But was he really that? Was he really the legend that people make him out to be? Or was he just someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time? His so-called charm was nothing more than arrogance covered in lucky timing. When you break it down, what did he actually accomplish that was truly his own? He got his ship from Lando in a game of chance, and it is Lando who actually maintained the Falcon before Han got his hands on it. His greatest asset was something he did not build, something he did not earn through skill, but through luck. If you strip away the Falcon, what exactly is left of Han Solo? His reputation as a legendary pilot is built on a single event, the Kessel Run. He shaved off some distance, made some reckless decisions, and because it worked out, people act like he was some genius. But when you think about it, how many times did the Falcon actually break down? How often did he actually have to rely on someone else to fix it? Without Chewbacca, Han would have been stranded in the middle of nowhere multiple times. And speaking of Chewbacca, it is funny how Han gets all the credit when Chewbacca was the real backbone of everything. The loyal Wookiee who was stronger, smarter, and far more dependable than Han ever was. But instead of Chewie getting the recognition he deserved, Han took the spotlight while barely keeping himself alive half the time. People love to talk about how skilled Han Solo was, how he always got himself out of impossible situations. But let's be honest, how much of that was actually skill, and how much of it was pure luck? How many times did he walk into a situation with no plan, no strategy, and somehow everything just worked out? That is not brilliance. That is dumb luck wearing a leather jacket. The Death Star escape, one of his most famous moments, was not some genius plan. He was running around, making noise, and barely keeping things together, while Luke and Leia did all the real work. He charged into a hallway filled with stormtroopers, and somehow did not get hit. That is not skill, that is plot armor at its strongest. Even when he was frozen in carbonite, it was not because of some great sacrifice. It was because he got caught. He was reckless, he was predictable, and he was not nearly as untouchable as people think he was. If it were not for Leia and Lando, he would have been Jabba's decoration for the rest of his life. But sure, let's pretend he was the mastermind of his own survival. And even in his final moments, what was he doing? He walked onto a bridge with no weapon, no real plan, and thought he could just talk his way out of something that was never going to be talked out of. He never had a strategy, he only had luck, and eventually, that luck ran out. Let's talk about the people who actually made a difference. The ones who truly put in the work while Han stood around pretending he did not care. Luke Skywalker, the man who took on an entire empire, who faced the greatest Sith Lord in history, and still had the courage to show mercy when nobody else would. That was a hero. Leia Organa, the woman who led armies, made impossible decisions, and carried the weight of the entire rebellion on her shoulders. While Han was off being sarcastic, Leia was planning attacks, organizing strategies, and holding everything together. She never needed Han to be the hero, she already was one. Obi-Wan Kenobi, a man who fought for the galaxy long before Han ever heard of the Empire. He faced Darth Vader, protected Luke, and gave his life to ensure the future of the rebellion. Han Solo was just a guy with a ship, a gun, and a lot of attitude. The real heroes were the ones who fought without expecting anything in return. And yet, somehow, Han is the one people remember. They put him on this pedestal, as if he was some irreplaceable piece of history, when the truth is, the rebellion would have survived without him. It might have even been better off. People love to say that Han Solo had an arc, that he started as a selfish rogue and became a true hero. But did he really? Did he ever truly change, or did he just find a way to benefit from being on the right side of history? At the end of the day, everything Han did was for himself. He left the rebellion the first chance he got, only returning when he realized he had nowhere else to go. He only helped Luke in the Death Star trench run, at the very last second, after making sure he got his reward. And even then, it was more about his own ego than anything else. People say he changed, but where is the proof? When things got difficult, he left Leia and went back to smuggling. He abandoned his family, abandoned his responsibilities, and ran away just like he always did. That is not growth. That is a pattern of behavior that never actually changed. He was not some tragic figure. He was a man who made choices. And the choices he made showed that deep down, he never stopped looking out for himself first. But people do not want to accept that, because they like the fantasy more than the reality. If Han Solo had never existed, what would have changed? If Luke had never been born, the rebellion would have lost. If Leia had never been born, there would have been no rebellion at all. If Obi-Wan had never trained Anakin, the entire galaxy would have gone in a different direction. But if Han Solo never existed, what truly would have been different? The rebellion would have still gotten the Death Star plans. They would have still found a way to destroy it. Luke would have still become a Jedi. Leia would have still led the movement, and the galaxy would have still fought back against the Empire. Han Solo was not a key figure. He was a supporting character who got more credit than he deserved. Even his ship, the one thing that made him valuable, would have found its way into someone else's hands. The Falcon was a tool, not a destiny, and without Han, someone else would have flown it just as well, if not better. Lando already proved that he could do it. So did Rey. So did Chewbacca. Han Solo was never the foundation of Star Wars. He was an accessory. A character that people liked because he was cool, not because he truly mattered. And when you take off the nostalgia goggles, it becomes clear that he was never as legendary as people made him out to be. Han Solo was not a genius. He was not a legend. And he was not the backbone of the galaxy. He was a man who rode the wave of bigger heroes, taking credit for things he barely contributed to. He was a distraction, a loud voice in the background, while others did the real work. His greatest strength was his luck, and that was never going to last forever. His story was not about growth. It was about running from one situation to the next, until there was nowhere left to run. He played the hero when it was convenient, and disappeared when it was not. In the end, his story was not about sacrifice. It was about inevitability. He made too many mistakes, took too many risks, and eventually, he was bound to fall. People act like his death was some great tragedy, but it was not. It was just the natural conclusion of someone who had been tempting fate for too long. The truth is, Han Solo was not overrated because he was bad. He was overrated because people mistook charm for importance, luck for skill, and recklessness for heroism. And now that the legend has faded, what is left is just the man. And that man was never as great as people wanted him to be.